get to hear a guru speak. So tonight is our lucky night because Lloyd Smith is a guru, at least according to one of his friends, Toastmasters colleague in Yakima, who Lloyd says if you knew a little bit better, you might doubt his opinion. This evening, for the second speech in the evaluation and feedback project in the Visionary Communication Path, Lloyd Smith will present a speech he wrote for the humorous speech contest a few years ago, but never gave in competition. One thing Lloyd knows about that contest is it's called the humorous speech, not humorously speaking. And there's a big difference which most judges know and which Lloyd can't exploit, which maybe is why he is the guru. Lloyd Smith, the guru speaks.
I'm not sure how it happened actually, but 2 or 3 years ago I became a guru. Now, I'm not the kind of guru who sits on top of a mountain and contemplates the nature of the universe. Rather, I'm the kind of guru who people email and ask for advice about how to construct contest speeches that serve them well in those events. I always tell them that the first thing they should do is look at the judges' criteria. Like every other game, our speech contests have rules, and many people don't understand that. And the judging criteria, it reveals the amazing fact that the speech is structured around a purpose, and this structure must, underline, include an opening, a body, and a conclusion. Who could have dreamed that would be the reality, but it is. Now, most people who give a speech in a contest have content, but very few people have a memorable introduction or a memorable conclusion. And that's something that I've always worked on really hard. I coached high school debate for 15 years, and so I judged probably 2,000 or so speeches during contests, and I saw some incredible introductions and conclusions. The greatest introduction to a speech I ever saw happened the last year I was coaching, 1985, at the Gonzaga University Invitational Tournament. It was in a round of senior division expository speaking. It was 8 a.m. and I was exhausted from spending 2 nights in a hotel with hundreds of kids wandering the hallways. The speech was in a strange little room on the top floor of the administration building. It was about 30 feet wide, but only about 8 or 10 feet deep. The contestants and I were sitting in one row of desks up against the wall on the long side of the room. I called for the first contestant, and an average-looking kid got up, sport coat, white shirt, tie, looked like a nice enough guy. He took the position right in front of me and said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Go for it." He lowered his eyes to get himself set for the speech, looked up at me, suddenly let out an enormous martial arts scream and lashed out his foot right at my face. I could see the sole of his foot getting closer and closer, and a second later, I was up against the back wall of the room, and I could hear a 10-year-old girl screaming. Then I realized that 10-year-old girl was me. The other contestants were also up against the wall screaming. A few seconds later, 25 people who had been in the rooms around us had stampeded in the door to find out what was going on. It took 20 minutes to calm everybody down, get everything organized again, and go on with the contest. My hands were shaking so badly that I couldn't even write comments on the ballots. The speech was about martial arts, and that scream and that kick were his attention-getting introduction. They sure were, because 35 years later, I can still remember what that foot looked like coming right at my face. There's an important principle, by the way. Know the size of your room before you do something like that. Now, the introduction is one of the bookends on a speech. The other bookend is the conclusion, obviously. There are lots of ways to conclude a speech, but the idea is to leave such an impression with the judges that they can't forget you. That's really important if you're early on in the speaking order, because you can get lost in the crowd as the contest goes on. By far, the most unforgettable speech conclusion I've ever heard or saw happened during the first tournament I ever took my students to, the Davis High School Invitational in Yakima, the first year I coached. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and it was a round of novice division interpretive reading. The contestants were supposed to read a selection of prose or poetry and transmit the meaning with their voice without using props or acting or excessive gestures or anything like that. There were 5 kids in the round, 4 girls and a guy. One by one, the girls got up, and they were actually pretty good for novice division people. And then the guy got up. He was a kind of an odd-looking little guy with a thin, reedy voice that really wasn't suited to interpretive reading at all. He was wearing what looked like his dad's sport coat and a shirt with a collar way too big and a badly tied tie. And he really wasn't any good at all. I was sitting there thinking, what am I going to write on the ballot to kind of say this guy, to this guy, everything's okay, but you need to find a different activity. And then he suddenly, at the end of his round, reached up and kind of grabbed his throat with a really startled look on his face. It sort of fit what he was doing, and I thought, well, great, now I'm going to have to penalize him for excessive acting. And then he threw up. Well, it wasn't acting. The girls jumped up screaming and gagging and ran out of the room. And I realized that there had been nothing in my preparation to become a teacher or a debate coach to prepare me for that magical moment. I got up and went out in the hall. There was a custodian coming by. I told him what happened, and he thought for a moment and said, "Gee whiz, I'd prefer not to deal with such an unfortunate mishap so close to the end of my shift, so I think I'll just lock that room up." I've always wondered what the teacher whose classroom that was thought on Monday morning when he unlocked that door at about 36 hours later. Not my problem, not my room. Now, the 2 bookends on the speech are critically important, the introductions and the conclusions. You may have noticed that the guru seems not to have taken his own advice. This speech didn't have that kind of an introduction or conclusion. Well, the reason's pretty obvious. I'm 72 years old. If I tried to do a martial arts scream and a kick like that, somebody in here would have to call 911 and have me carried away. And I really just never enjoyed throwing up.
I wonder if the teacher whose dream that was happened to be the one that put the fish in the microwave and left it there. Oh. That was a great speech that Lloyd gave. Take a minute to provide some feedback.